What's up, guys? Danny Carlson here, and this is the Actualize Freedom Podcast. This is number 3 of our influencer marketing series, and this is going to be a little bit different of an episode. Usually I interview someone all the way across the world, but I have found an awesome influencer marketing expert, among other things expert, here in Cebu City, and it's really funny how I met this guy. The universe was just trying to put Daniel in front of me. Like, literally, I just met him randomly at the gym one day. He was wearing some American t-shirt, and I just commented on that. And then I think 2 days later, some guy at a co-working space with a really awesome business just recommended that I meet this really awesome guy who's got this crazy business and all these employees set up. And it turned out to be Daniel. And then I think, not even 2 days after that, I saw Daniel standing on the side of the road, hailing a cab. And I'm like, okay, I gotta meet this guy. So a little bit about Daniel. He's got 300 plus employees here in 3 countries, the CEO and founder of Atlas Creative Group, and it is hard to describe how many things Daniel's got his hands into. So this is gonna be a really interesting episode. So welcome to the podcast, Daniel. Maybe let's start with a little bit about, what's your whole story? How did you get started to this whole thing?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, I just want to say thank you. And thank you for having me on your podcast. And it was kind of crazy. Like, it was actually a pair of shorts that I was wearing. I have an American pair of shorts. So for all of you American listeners, shout out to you guys. I love America. I love Canada way better, but like America has it's made me quite a bit of money. So there's no reason for me to hate America. And it doesn't matter like who runs the country. I think America is a great country. But anyway, Danny commented on my shorts and he was just like, oh, I guess you're American. I'm like, no, I'm Canadian. And we kind of hit it off from there. And a few weeks later, here we are, or like a couple months. Like when was it? Like a couple months ago?
Yeah, it was like 2 months ago or so, back when I was fresh here in Cebu City.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, here's some other foreigner people.
Yeah, Danny was there just cranking the weights, flexing his muscles. And next thing you know, we're here on the podcast, so thank you so much for having me.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I was like, I like protein. You like protein? Daniel's like, yeah, I love protein.
Yeah, I love protein powder. Protein. I like meat. Yeah, we talked about meat, didn't we? Did we talk about protein?
I don't know, possibly. It's very hard to get clean protein here in the Philippines.
It's true.
It's all got the sugar and the sweeteners and stuff.
It's true. It's true. Like a piece of like a chicken here. They call it like lechon manal. Like they have the chicken, but it's like it's soaked in like stuff, but it's phenomenal, right? What do you eat? Like what do you eat here? Like how do you stay so buff?
I just try to eat as healthy as possible. There's a local place right by my house that has a bunch of good fish, and they have like seaweed salads and a bunch of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I haven't found any protein out here, and just eating better food is better than just loading myself with a bunch of protein and then eating like crap. So it just seems to work out. But so tell us a little bit about Atlas Creative Group and how you got started.
Okay, so where do you want me to start? Like when I first got into e-commerce, or when I started like Atlas Creative Group?
You got a really interesting story getting started here, so let's just go from when you literally just started.
All right, so I'll first preface this, like Atlas Creative Group, formerly known as Apollo Creative Group, that's my company that I started a couple of years ago, and the reason why I started it was because I always had so many different ideas, and I had so many ideas that didn't work, and that a couple ideas that worked. So I decided one day, I was like, you know what, why don't I just create a holding company where I can experiment underneath, and I don't have to be worried if one thing doesn't work out or another thing doesn't work out, and then the things that do work out, then I can maybe put my name behind. So that's why I went with some more of a holding company style thing. But my entry into e-commerce was so growing up, I always had this obsession of taking things apart, and so whether it was a toy or a radio or a computer, I would always take it apart, figure out how it worked, and put it back together. And that sort of translated into like later on as I grew up into more of like ideas, right? Taking that idea apart, breaking it down to its little steps and to see how it actually works. And I'm like obsessed over that, right? So that's one of the things that got me into e-commerce and in business, because I was like, okay, like how does someone just have a brand and how does someone just have like a business? Like I think that's the most amazing thing. Like that's the coolest thing. I always admired people. Like I never really like I always admired that they were wealthy or that they were well off, but it was more of like, okay, what did they do to get there, right? Because I think most people, and I think you would say the same thing, is like you look at someone that's wealthy, a lot of times like most people will just say, okay, like wow, like they look at their success and then they see that and they're just like, oh my goodness, like overnight they got this, they have all this money or they have this business. But I was just like, okay, what did they do what did they do to get that? So after school, I worked a few different jobs, like different industries. I worked a few months in as a chef, a barista, a few months in sales, a few months in like the auto industry. I did a little bit of everything and then saved up. And then I got to a point where I was like, okay, I wanna do something of my own. I always had like some small things going on, but I wanted to like actually, figure out and do stuff. So
just for reference, how old are you right now?
Right now I am like just out of high school, so I'm right like 17, 18.
Well, like today.
Oh, today I'm 22. Yeah.
22. Yeah. So this is a pretty short time frame we're talking about.
I don't like it feels like a long time. But now that I'm thinking about it, like I've never really like analyzed or thought back. But yeah, I guess 4 years. 4 years is a long time, right, Danny?
I mean, in the day and age of digital marketing, 4 years is like a grandfather.
You
talk to the Amazon sellers from 4 years ago, they're like, they are the experienced like gurus, right?
And like a lot of, I would say this, just going off of that, like a lot of people, for instance, a lot of people that are going into this industry, they're really skeptical about getting someone that is just like fresh or that's just like a couple years in, and I would say like, you just got to look at their work, because most people, the best people that are getting in here later on, right? Because when they studied all the new and updated things, right? Like someone coming into marketing, if they're actually in the trenches, maybe they don't know all the basic principles. But for you too, like if you always have to be consistently updating yourself, right? And like the things that work. So I would say people that are just getting into the industry too, a lot of people bash on like the gurus and stuff like that, but hey, if they understand how it works, then they can, as long as they can make it money, right?
No, absolutely. And so at the start of your journey, it was drop shipping that first got you into e-commerce?
Right, yeah, okay, yeah, so it was drop shipping. So let's fast forward a little bit. I took all my money, I had 20 grand saved up. I worked all these different industries, but I never worked for the actual money. But then one day I looked at my bank account, I'm like, hey, I have 20 grand in the bank account. Okay, let's do something. So I packed my bags, said goodbye to the family, moved to Australia. I had some family there, and I basically decided I bought a car there and I just traveled. I traveled around, did a couple of things. I always had so many ideas. I wanted to start a food truck, like a Canadian food truck, selling like Canadian poutine and all that sort of stuff.
Bacon.
In just around Australia. That never happened because you needed more than 20 grand to open up a truck. And then next thing you know, I got into surfing. I really fell in love with surfing. My hair, I grew up my hair. I looked like a typical beach bum.
There's not that many Canadian surfers out there. There's
not
many
places
to surf in Canada. Right?
No, not in Canada. So that actually, talk about one of the hardest things that I ever did in my life was learn how to surf. And I came from a snowboarding background. You board, right, Danny?
Mm-hmm. I'm a terrible surfer. Downhill longboarding is the one that I got really into for a number of years. Yeah. But surfing, I agree, man. I still get my ass kicked at surfing. I've been trying so hard to get that nut cracked. Us Canadians, we're built for snowboarding.
Yeah,
in the winter,
that's
right?
true. Hey, actually, I was looking at your story the other day when you did the marathon and then you went boarding, and I was like, like you went longboarding, and I'm like, that is cool. I wanna try that sometime. So we have to go out sometime.
Oh, absolutely. Just a quick digression here. I've always had this theory that extreme sports helps in business because it has a lot of correlation, right? Between the risk, like analyzing risk, being okay with risk and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about that?
100%. Like I had the thought this like last night. So I just hired a trainer. Like I've had a few trainers, but I want someone that can kick my ass, right? And so like I was there training last night in the gym, and I was hurting, I was hurting, and it wasn't comfortable, it was painful, and then I thought to myself, I said, hey, these are some of the most important things for business entrepreneurs. And like one thing I would encourage like people getting into entrepreneurship is like make sure you're doing things that are hard outside of business, right? Because like business, and that's hard, right? That's mentally hard. But if you do things like extreme exercising or like extreme sports, like it really helps you get over like the risk aspect like you're talking about, and also like the motivation to push through, which I think is the most important thing. But yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah,
mental conditioning, right? And so, 100%. Okay, so you're in Australia and you're looking for opportunities to start your first business. Right?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm in Australia and I'm driving around, I'm visiting family a little bit. I have a few boards. I'm surfing every beach. Like after I learned how to surf, which took me quite a while. It's really hard. But you should try it. Like you should definitely try to surf. But you surf, right? Or like a little bit?
Yeah, I mean a little bit. All my friends here in the Philippines are good surfers, so they're teaching me the ropes.
Yeah. It's really satisfying. So anyway, long story short, I end up after a few months, nothing. Like I have no money. I have absolutely no money. I end up on a small beach in the south of Perth, below Margaret River, which is on the west coast of Australia. And I'm on the beach, no gas in my car. It runs out on the beach. And I end up living on the beach with beach bums for a few weeks. And that was a pretty low point in my life, but it was also a point that I kind of was satisfied with it. We would surf every day with a few other guys who were also beach bums. All they would do is we'd surf, and then they would just smoke weed all day. And a local baker, no one had money, right? No one had money for to get food. I didn't even have money to put in my car to get gas. But the local baker would come by and bring seconds. So some days we would have a few buns to enjoy, and some days it wouldn't come by. So that was pretty interesting. And I really tried to find I don't remember if that was 3 weeks or 4 weeks or maybe 6 weeks. It was more than a month, I think. But I just remember a point where I was just I tried, I kind of tried to find a job, but I was a little
You kind of didn't want one.
Yeah, I kind of didn't want one.
I feel like you should have tried.
Yeah. And then I came to a point, I remember this one thing my uncle told me, and he said, Dan, just don't become a beach bum surfer who is working at a bar. And I remember that, and I'm okay, that really stuck with me. And then I finally was okay, now I really need to find a job. So I would walk to the town. I would try to hitch a ride. Also, Australia, you can hitchhike. A lot of people hitchhike, which is pretty cool, and New Zealand. So I did that. Didn't find anything for a week. I've got one small job, paid a couple $20-40. So I was out of luck, and I just I asked a couple other backpackers, right, that would come and surf and say, hey, do you know of any opportunities? And I can't find anything. I'm at my the rope's end. And what they said was there was one person that was you should try medical trials. And I'm medical trials? What's a medical trial? Do you know what a medical trial is?
Is that where you some new untested drug is coming out?
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So lo and behold, believe it or not, there was a medical trial center in Perth. And so what I did was, like, I went there and I went to the office looking like crazy. I'm like, there's no way that they're gonna accept me into this stuff. But turns out I was the perfect fit. They were looking for exactly people, right, that like would take the job. I'm like, yeah, I'll take the job. Where do I sign? So for the next little bit, I basically became a guinea pig, and that's how I got out of doing. So like I would go. So for those of you guys who don't know what a medical trial is, it's basically, like Danny said, is where they test new drugs that are not on the market yet, and they find people that are like either that don't have money, homeless people, because, you know, if they disappear, then they don't, like, there's not a big issue. But like it's not as bad as it sounds, but they do test it on animals first, and like, so there's still a risk. I mean, like, if you guys look up, there was a medical trial in France that happened like 5 years ago where like 16 people died or something like that. So there are cases. But anyway, so I became a guinea pig, and I would go in and they would just strap me up with they would take my blood, strap me up with like monitors and that sort of stuff. And in there, like in the first trial is where I basically got into e-commerce, because I got a Facebook ad that said, like on the third day, it said, build a t-shirt brand in 5 minutes. And like, that is like, yeah, and that is exactly, like, long story short, I did a few different ones. So what I did was I ended up over the next like 3 months, I just hopped from medical trial to medical trial, and I tested like all the drugs, and it was pretty insane. Yeah.
So your recommendation to the listeners is to just try a bunch of untested drugs, and then that's going to get a spark of inspiration to go start a killer business. My recommendation for the listeners is, number one, don't do drugs, because that's going to slow you down. Actually, like, there was one trial I did, and like the only reason I actually got in, like, was because I did not smoke weed with the other bums, right? Because like you have to be clean. You have to be like 100% clean, right? No Canadian leaf. You can't have any of that Canadian leaf inside you, right? Yeah, legal in our country now. Legal in all of Canada.
That's true. It's legal. But what was I saying? I remember one trial that I like went in, and it was 7 days. The only thing I remember is getting in there. There was 2 guys beside me on cots beside me, and I remember them getting dismissed because they had like THC in their system, and that's the only thing I remember. 7 days later, I just remember them, you know, like taking everything off, and then I was good. But like the drug that they tested was like some opium like stuff for really old people, like a pain patch, and it was like the higher dose. But they never tell it. They just, you know, they break things down. But it's crazy.
That's intense.
Crazy shit.
So walk us through the point that you started the business up until you started gaining some traction and started to see it really grow. Yeah. So
my first ever t-shirt brand. And they said 5 minutes, but like it doesn't take 5 minutes to launch a t-shirt brand. It takes like hundreds of hours, or like if you're first getting into it. But my first ever brand was called Byron Butch, and it was Byron Butch, and it was a hipster t-shirt brand, and it sold millions of dollars worth of merch. No, it sold one t-shirt to my dad. So shout out to my dad. Thanks for buying a t-shirt. I think it sold a couple more things, but absolutely like zero. Like that was like the biggest fail. I spent so much time on working on it, and it didn't. Yeah, it just did not.
But it kind of introduced you to the concept of e-commerce, right?
Sure, right. And it introduced me to the e-commerce, and I was just soaking up every bit of information that I could. I didn't have any money to buy a course, so what I did was I just consumed every piece of information out there. Like the amount of hours that I watched was just insane. But it was also exhilarating. Like when you got into this business, I'm sure like you have the exact same story, because at the start you're just like, it's amazing you, right? Because the amount of opportunity that's there, and it just keeps you going, right?
It's incredible. And it's so incredible what Daniel's saying too, is that you can learn pretty much anything you want for free on the internet.
Yeah,
like you're listening to this podcast right now. I'm trying to bring you guys a bunch of really interesting experts to help you build your business. I'm not charging any money for this stuff. There's people way smarter than me out there putting out way better content too. They're not charging any money for it. You can go get a PhD times 3 for free.
And my favorite part is like, I often tell, like when we train a lot of people in here, like for Facebook ads and like e-commerce, and what I always tell them, I said, just do not get wowed by the numbers, because most of the people are out there will like that are selling a course, they will be like, look, I made 30 grand in 1 month and now I'm selling a course, right? Like most of the people that are making the big bucks and don't have making the big bucks, they don't have a course because they're too busy on, working towards that. But all the information, I can tell you, like almost 100% of the information is out there. You just got to look. And like Danny is a straight shooter for giving you guys content that is just valuable, because hey, like there's a lot of bullshit out there. So
there really is a lot of bullshit. So one of the things that I really want to talk about in this interview is influencer marketing.
Yeah.
So when it comes to your clients with your agency, what kind of influencer marketing stuff have you been working on? What kind of stuff have you been finding that's really successful?
Yeah, so in terms of influencer marketing, and like we do a little bit of client work. We mostly work on internal brands that we like build internally, and then we just get the profit from that. We don't do that much client work, but we're opening up to do some more client work in the future. But I would say like for influencer marketing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, influencer marketing is probably like the biggest thing, and like such an important aspect of it, because if I look back now, when I started Byron Butch, for instance, that's the one thing like t-shirt brands and those sort of brands need in order to drive traffic, because you can't, unless you have a t-shirt that is really like attractive to someone, and then you somehow get that t-shirt into like that person's newsfeed, it's really hard. But if you have a connection with an influencer of a brand that is like an ambassador of the brand, then you have a connection there of someone that trusts. So I think that's like a lot of our businesses are built off of influencer marketing and ambassador programs. Like we connect with people and they in turn like post pictures, they sell the product for us. And so if you are able to like nail that down and come up with a system, I think that's one of the most important things. And like if you look at any single brand, it's either like people, like the influencer side of it is either you are a reputable brand like Nike, and you have like every customer is an influencer of sort, because they put on your shoes and like you're wearing Nikes, right? That's lit. So that's free marketing. But when you're starting out, it's super hard, right? So you have to make those connections with ambassadors or influencers to do that. So
let's start at step one here. How would you recommend reaching out to the right people? Like, how do you even know who you should be reaching out to?
Right.
How are you going about reaching out to them?
Right. Yeah. So I won't share everything, but we have we're always testing, right? We're always testing new ways. But like I would say a tried and true way is you have to get on Instagram. You have to get where eyeballs are, and you have to start looking for people that potentially can represent your brand, and then you have to start conversating with them. Like the biggest thing, what it boils down to is like you have to have a little bit of logic, and you have to have a little bit of common sense, and you have to have action. Like you have those three things, and you're golden. But you have to start looking and prospecting for people that could potentially represent your brand. Now, I would say there are a lot of sites out there right? Where you can pay people, it's like they're a middleman, right? To, get people. But I would say a lot of times those influencers are like, let's say that you have a big influencer that has like 100,000 followers, you're going to pay them a certain amount of money, right? And they're going to post your product. Now, you don't know exactly what return you're going to have on that product, and if it's too costly to pay that influencer, you maybe ended up, like, most of the time you'll become negative, right? It really sucks. You could waste a lot of money, just like you can waste a lot of money on anything like paid advertisements. So I would say the biggest thing to do is to start looking for people that could potentially represent your brand right away.
And so, like, how are you reaching out to these people? Are you just sending them directly a DM right away? You're trying to add comments first, or
so we have a three step, which is like a follow, DM, comment on their post, and then for people that have bigger, one of the most important things, like you have people that have a bigger following, and they get hundreds of messages every day, right? So you could go for what we call the big fish, or the ones that have 50 or 100,000 or 600,000, and you can DM them, but you have to just make sure that the first line, and like for you guys listening, it's going to be a little harder, but like the first line in your text, so it's one paragraph, the first line in your text, I recommend saying something like business only with a couple fire emoji and some cash emojis, right? Then you can open up the conversation. I would say like that works really well. Like they're gonna see it. They're gonna see it because they're scrolling down, and it's gonna pop out. So it's like, be the purple cow, pop out a little bit, and so that's pretty good.
I think that's a really good tip, because everyone is listening to this to help you understand the psychology of a lot of these Instagram influencers and why just sending them a random DM is not going to work very well. Go find one of your friends. If one of your friends has 10,000, 50,000 followers or something like that, ask to look inside of their DMs for a second and see what kind of garbage fills up their DMs.
Yeah.
And you will understand immediately why you need to approach this a very certain way, because you're just another message that's in there with all the spam, all the people asking for some collaboration with no clear call to action. Like, just so many people are doing things so wrong that you need a way to actually stand out and prove you're not one of those.
Yeah, and I would say too, like also adding value, like for you guys, like you entrepreneurs that are just getting into this thing, like I made this mistake a few times as well. But like, for instance, if you want to start like networking as well, that's the biggest thing. Like you don't, like the worst thing that you could say is something like, you could say like something I would not recommend saying is like, hey, can I pick your brain? Right? Like that is something like you don't want to.
You want to meet up for a coffee sometime.
Yeah, I want.
You don't even say what you want to meet up.
Exactly. Right. So I would say, and I got a few of those, not a lot, but I would say like, just add like, just be creative or like respond to some of their content. Like, okay, if you're looking for an influencer and the influencer just posted a picture about something that they love doing. Like for instance, Danny, he loves doing extreme sports. If I didn't know Danny and I went in and I messaged him, I would probably reply to a story of him doing like an extreme sport, like downhill boarding. I would be like, man, that is like so sick. I really admire that. Like, do you have any tips and tricks of how to get started in boarding, or like what's a good place, right? Start asking like a simple question. Don't, like, maybe your objective is to, sit down with a cup of coffee with Danny, but like if you come off with more of like more super interested in like actually what he loves doing, it's going to give you a lot better chance of, securing that. So
totally. Yeah, like just directly DMing someone without like really being conscious of it is the equivalent of going up to someone at a networking event and handing them your business card without introducing
100%.
yourself. It's just like, it makes you look dumb, it makes you look like you don't know what you're doing, and you're not going to get good results.
Yeah, I'll just give an example for that. So like I've been listening to like Andy Frisella, who's like, do you know who Andy Frisella is? He has a podcast.
I'm not sure.
He has a supplement brand in in like the States, and he had a guy on, like a really public speaking guy on his podcast, right? And I was blown away by this guy, so I sent him a DM, but I related it, and like when I looked at his profile, this guy's verified. He's got like a couple 100,000 followers, or maybe like around 100. I don't remember, but I was like, okay, this guy's never gonna see it, but let me be more intentful. So I just wrote, like, I broke things down. I like listened to the podcast again, and I sent him a message, say, hey, I just listened to your podcast with so and so. This is what I really liked about it, and I really value your content. And then he started talking to me, and we got into the conversation, and boom, right there you have someone, like a connection. And maybe that connection, I didn't ask for anything, but who knows? Like, maybe I'll be able to leverage that down the road, right? So like, I think that's super important. So start a conversation with your potential influencers, and just be friendly and compliment them. So.
Awesome. And so the next step here is actually structuring, like, how you're going to be working together with these influencers. So what have you found to be the best way to structure that?
And actually I'll add one more thing to the influencer. A lot of people will get discouraged because they will like go for like the big fish. They'll go to like super, hundreds of thousands, that sort of stuff. But you have to understand that like everybody's an influencer, right? Everybody has like influences someone, right? And if they can influence one person, at least one person, to buy a product or represent your brand, then it's worth it, right? It's worth the money. So I would say don't be afraid to, go to smaller people and just say, hey, this is like, we're starting this product on Amazon or wherever, and I think you'd be like a perfect candidate to, test it out and to represent our brand. We're looking for ambassadors.
And so when you say smaller people, are you like, what kind of follower count?
Yeah, not shorter people. Not like let me clarify that. Not like small people. Not
people over 6 foot tall. And they suck at influencing. They can't influence anybody.
Yeah, and no, but I would say like what? Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah. So like, what kind of follower count are we talking about? You mentioned like smaller accounts.
Yeah, I'm talking about smaller influencers. Like honestly, like I've realized this, like a mom in a community influences a lot of people, most of the time, right? And so if your product is, catered to, or your target market is, mothers or something like that, you could go to someone that maybe has even 500 or 1,000 or 2,000 followers. And if you connect with them, you can work out a deal where not only, like, you have to understand that your time is valuable, right? And your products are pricey, or maybe like you don't want to lose that much money. So you have to craft, like, and leading into the, crafting the system is like, you have to find out the best way to structure what your giveaways are and like what value you want from that. So,
yeah, and so your theory here is, even if they only have 1,000 followers or whatever, they're not necessarily going to be posting all over Instagram, like, and that's not going to get a crazy return, but they will go to all their friends. Mommy friends.
But they might if you put that in. But they will if you put that in as a requirement, right? So you can say, hey, listen, we're going to send you this and this and this. We're looking for people for our ambassador program, but you need to have. We desire you to post, like we require you to post on your Instagram. We need to post you a couple pictures at least with your product, and we'll also maybe give you a discount code or something like that, referring our product. And so they will do that, like 100%, because all these big influencers, they're all used to, getting DMs, everybody trying to, have them represent the product. But like someone smaller, in a sense of like their following, that's going to impact them a lot more.
Yeah, and proportionally, like you're sending them like one product and giving them a coupon code to use for themselves later in the friends or something like that. What is that going to cost you as a business owner? Like $5, $10 or something like that?
100%.
So, I mean, proportionally, that sounds like a pretty damn good reward.
Yeah.
Like you said, if 1 or 2 people buy it, then that was worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, and not only that, it's the relationship that you are building with them, okay? And like you're building your customer base. So let's say like you guys have to remember you're in this for the long game, right? You're not in this to like make a couple, million like right off, or a couple 100,000, a couple thousand right away. You have to have the long-term mindset, and that's the only way to win in this game, because you have to remember like what's out of your control. And like a lot of people talk about, like Gary, you talk about this, about the thank you economy, right? Like who knows, maybe in like maybe 6 months after you send that product, someone's gonna ask or say that, oh, I have a problem with doing this, and then you're gonna, like, your influencer's gonna say, hey, actually I got like sent a free product and this helped me, and like it can help you. And then guess what, they're gonna go and they're gonna purchase from you. So yeah,
how much correlation do you see between like business networking and influencer marketing when it comes to what you just mentioned there? It's like, because in networking, like you said, you never know when someone in your network is going to just come up and be like the perfect person that you knew, and you met them like 2 years ago or 100%. Something like that. Do you think it's the same in influencer marketing?
I 100% think it's the same. One thing I would say though is like that's your power base, and you have to, like, your power base is the people that are connected with you and your network, and the same thing with your business, right? The people that are connected to your brand and your product. The thing that you have to do is always cultivate that, right? Like for instance, I'm talking to Danny right now, 10 years down the road, if I don't maybe send him a message a couple times and just completely forget about him and ignore him, right? What's going to happen is like maybe he'll forget about me, or like we won't have that much of a connection. But if we connect maybe once a year or a couple times, or if I see something that I think he would like, send it to him, or like those sort of things, that's what's going to build those long-lasting relationships. And the same goes for your business and your customers. And super, super important.
That is super valuable. And so when it comes to influencers, we're talking about micro influencers, so to speak, right? Smaller ones here. Do you have a separate strategy for larger influencers as well?
I would say like it works both. Like what it comes down to is like the value you give. You need to be presentable. Like you need to be representing your brand well. So I would say create a brand new account representing your brand like specifically, and reach out to them. Because if you just have your personal Instagram or like your personal email and then you're just sending them a message like, hey, yada yada yada, they're gonna look at you and then they're gonna maybe be like, oh, it's just like a random small person, right? You want to be presentable. So presentation is key as well for that. But I think it works for both. Like actually, one of our customer service reps on a new brand that we've been running, the brand's a French jewelry brand called La Venet, and we are really heavy on like the relationship of influencers, and like just nonchalantly they like I was looking through our Instagram, and we posted a picture of a girl that had like 650,000 people, and the people in our customer service like department were like going crazy because it's a super famous person from Manila here. I don't know, some TV show, but like it wasn't much. Like it was just because one person connected with them and they said yes and they resonated with the brand, and next thing you know, they're a huge influencer for us. So I think it works, to your question, it works both for small and big. It's obviously easier to go with micro influencers, but you just have to be presentable. So.
Yeah, and like, I can imagine the problem would be scaling out the micro influencers. You have a ton of employees, and obviously that makes things easier. But like, what recommendations would you have for someone who's maybe it's just themselves, or maybe it's them and a couple general virtual assistants? How can they scale the small influencers?
100%. I would say break it down, figure out how many you need to send out. Like how many, what it comes down to is like, okay, how many messages do I need to send out to get a connection? And then how many people do I need to send out those messages to, be profitable? I would say like wherever you are in the world, find someone close to you and get them to start sending out messages. Do it yourself, figure out how it works, break that barrier of getting the first person, and then you can start building. Like actually, like we've been doing this for a long time. And it was funny because I watched a video from Gary Vee, and Gary Vee, this is exactly what he said. He's just like, what you need to do is you need to hire an intern and get them to make 20 accounts and start DMing everybody. And I kind of laugh because we've been doing it for a long time, and we have like 300 accounts, and we're doing it like all around the world. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, if you can, it's really important to invest into those things that don't technically scale, because you can't put metrics behind it, right? But influencer marketing is really heavy, and it's key. So I would say just start sending out the messages.
Totally, and to scale that, like the messages have to be physically sent out, right?
Yeah.
There's no fancy software that's going to be like a email list provider for Instagram DMs. Yeah. Could you imagine that? There'd be twice as much spam on there.
There actually, like, there is, and we do run like we've tested out, but like the problem is, like, as Instagram and as these other platforms get smarter, what's going to happen is like it just leaves less room for bots. Like they do this thing called like the Instagram Purge, which happens once in a while. And that's why, like, Justin Bieber drops like 2 million followers. Well, hey, those were all bot accounts following people and interacting with people too, right? So it's possible, but you want to be authentic. You want to have that actual conversation. You don't want to come off as spam, because you don't want to, have a negative input of towards your brand, right? You don't want to have a negative connotation about your brand. So.
No, absolutely. And you mentioned something that I want to touch on too, which is the mindset of, let me just get this microphone. I've got a plastic table.
Yeah, we're on a plastic table, and it's like
kind of
let's see,
creeping down.
I can hold it like this.
I mean, it'll be all right. I'll just leave it.
Right.
Yeah, that'll be good there.
Okay.
But okay, so the idea of reverse engineering your metrics. So you mentioned how many DMs do I need to send to get one response, and then like how many responses do I need to get one influencer on my team. Yeah. If you know those two metrics, then you know exactly how many DMs you should be sending to get your result, right?
Yeah.
And I found that so powerful in other areas of business too. Like if you're doing any kind of sales calls, like how many leads do I need to book one sales call? How many sales calls do I need to close one client? Things like that. Reverse engineer your goals. How much revenue you want to do for the year? Yeah. Okay, how much is that per month? And then how many sales do I need to make per month to make that? So for you guys listening, I'd recommend doing this in as many areas of your business as you possibly can, for sure. Yeah,
and in life as well, right? What it comes down to, like, especially like, hey, I when I started out in entrepreneurship, I had like massive goals. I still have massive goals, right? But you got to break it down. Like, you can have massive goals, but then you got to break it down to the day. Okay, what do I need to do today, and do this every single day so that I can hit that goal? And I think that's one of the most powerful things. Yeah.
And totally apply it to your life. Like, how many people do we need to swipe on Tinder to get one date?
Exactly.
How many dates do we need to go on to find a beautiful girlfriend or beautiful boyfriend that I want to date?
We like, when I give sales talks to our team, to our sales teams, it's exactly, I say, okay, who's in here that's single? All right, raise your hand. Who here is that's not single? Okay, and then we go into, like, it's the exact same thing. It applies, right? Well, like, do you want to stay single for the rest of your life? Do you want, like, what do you actually want? What are your goals? Define your goals, and then break it down and, like, what you have to do. And, like, otherwise you're just gonna sit there and complain about, oh my goodness, I'm never gonna hit these goals. I'm not gonna hit these goals. Of course, you're not gonna have a girlfriend if you don't ever, take steps towards that. You're never gonna have a relationship. You're never gonna get that, right? So.
Heck yeah, man. At first, when you said you're asking your salespeople, like, if they're single or not, I thought you had some kind of matchmaking thing.
No, yeah, that's our first response too. And like some girls will just put their hand up, and I'm like, no, guys, this is not a call for it. Yeah, so.
Yeah, you don't want to encourage your employees to date each other. That just is probably not the best thing to.
Like, in your company. What we say, hey, and there's like there's a lot of like amazing relationships that's come out of like who we employ and stuff like that. But we say, like, hey, you just make sure that it's like you keep it outside of the company, and and then we usually try to like split them up so they're not with each other like 100% of the day. But it's tricky.
Yeah, no doubt, man. All right, that has been incredibly useful on influencer marketing. Yeah. There's one more thing that I know you were an absolute wizard at, is Facebook Messenger bots. And Amazon sellers are really interested by messenger bots right now, using Manychat, but it's something that is very confusing to set up. There's a lot of moving pieces, right? So what has your experience been with messenger bots?
Yeah, and going back to like the fact that I really enjoy taking ideas apart and really seeing how they work and really work on the engineering side of things is what drew me to like messenger bots, because I got put in a messenger bot and I'm like, wow, like how does this work? And then that's how I got into messenger bots, and it's phenomenal. Like it's absolute, I would say like flat out messenger bots right now, and I don't know how long it's going to be around for, but right now it is one of the most powerful ways to stay connected with your customers or your potential customers, and it's like an absolute must. But it is like it's hard. It's hard. Like when I first got into it, I just locked myself out from everybody, and then just spent like a few days on like where like I would just like, you know, when I get on an idea, I just lock everything out, every single distraction, and I go 100% on that. But yeah, messenger bots are, it's hard because it's a little complicated, but it's very important.
Yeah, well, like, in what kind of ways are you using it? Because you're using it not directly to Amazon, right? A lot of the listeners are only Amazon sellers. You're sending people to Shopify stores to buy products?
Yeah.
Or what is give me an example of like one of your funnels.
Okay, so like one of the things that I've done, like I just do a lot of testing, and I think that's a key of like testing different ways that work. But we use it like all over the place. Like we use it to cultivate leads. We use it to sell directly. We use it to like give information. We use it internally. Like we have a remote, like this is one of the most powerful things actually I would say, is like we have a remote staff of people here and around the world, and they're like commission-based structure. But what I do is every single day I create a video, like a brand spanking new video, and then I send it to one of our like people on our video teams, and then that gets distributed internally. But what the beauty is that can go directly into someone's messenger, right? So we use it for operations, we use it for sales, we use it for cultivating leads, we use it for hiring. Like every single person that is hired, we hired through social media, and everybody has to go through an automated application that I've designed specific to that thing. So it takes a lot. It's kind of crazy.
Messenger bots for hiring too. I love that.
Yeah. Well, like because you have to you think about it. Like there's a lot of people that need a job, right? But they may not be fit specifically for that job. So you need to break that down. But you can for targeting, right? Like. I could put an ad in the paper, or I could put an ad like on a site or like a hiring company, but they may necessarily, get the right person, right? So, but what we do is like we run ads specific to like, so if we want people that are like web devs, so we run ads specific to people that are interested in it. If we want people in marketing, we run ads specific to that. And then there's a funnel specific, like a messenger bot specifically for that. And adding, like asking them all the specific questions that we would ask them in an interview. Yeah. Whether, wow. It's crazy.
You just blew my mind right now, because I'm thinking of the possibilities for this. For hiring, you can send someone through one of your messenger bots and get them to answer all your questions, and then like that, every question they answer will add a tag to them, so that later on, if you need, like I need to hire some graphic designers, you can just go into your Manychat and you can send a broadcast to everyone who checked off to their graphic designer and they live in Cebu City, or whatever kind of text.
That's exactly. I think we have like in our application, I think we have like 7,000 applications in right now for like many different things. So whenever we need to scale, we look, we sift through, or we run more ads and we see. But like not everybody is available full time, right? But they're available part time. Then they come on. And then if they're really good, then you bring them on full time. Like we have people here from like Google, like locally, because like on our customer service, but we had them part time and they were just like phenomenal. So just hey, like what will it take for us to get you on here, right? So, but it's the same thing. Like just saying that, it's exact same thing for clients. It's exact same thing for customers, right? It's exact same thing. What it comes down to is the numbers, right? the numbers that are in the funnel, the numbers that you're sending out messages, and then that goes into like, okay, how many messages do I need to send out, or how many people do I need in my messenger funnel to be profitable or to make a sale. So
that's awesome. So maybe give us an example of a funnel that would lead someone to a sale.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just trying to think like we have people doing this now, so I'm not always in it, but like a lot of the funnels that I made. So I'm just trying to think of a specific product that I can give to you guys. So I sold a product, let's say 7 months ago, last year sometime, and the product was for like older women and men, or older women, and it targeted like to lose fat underneath their arms, right? So like one of a pain point of like, women is like when they get older, and same with men too, but women are more conscious about their body, is like they have excess fat right underneath their arm, right? So there's this device that can help you exercise that, right? Instead of having to do push-ups, these sort of things.
It wasn't a shake weight, was it?
No, it was not a shake weight, but it's like, it's not as disturbing as a shake weight, right? So it's more of like a fluid motion, and I forget what the product's called, but it's all over Amazon, it's everywhere. And it was a pretty successful campaign, but we ran it, and I ran that directly into a funnel. But what I did was like, I ran it into a funnel, provided value first, provided other reviews of other people who use this product, and then didn't ask for the sell right away, but waited for them to ask it, right? Waited for them to ask for, where can I buy this? But then I would also, for those who, let's say I put 100 people in, okay, to the funnel, 1 or 2 people purchased. Okay, then I would segment them off as people who purchased. Then I would do follow-ups for those 2 people with upsells of that product, different bands, different strengths, training program for that. For the people that possibly like engage with the content, or then I would send them more content over the next couple days. And it's super hard to explain this over audio, because you really need to like build a spider web of the funnel on a whiteboard. But essentially I would just break it down into buckets. So some people would go into a specific bucket. If they purchased, they would go into one bucket. If they didn't purchase, they would go into another bucket. But then in that second bucket, if they didn't purchase but they had intent, or they read the content, then they would go into a specific bucket in that second bucket. Okay? And then in that bucket there would be another 2 buckets, and it goes on and on and on and on and on, until you have really everything broken down into what is the best way to convert every single person in that funnel. Because at the end of the day, like every single person has intent, right? Because they were curious about the ad, right? So they saw the ad and they clicked on the ad and went into the funnel. But that can work for everything, right?
For everything, yeah. I love the way that you really broke that down too. So like, I'm
sorry, but it's super hard to explain it on.
No, I'm the same way. I really need to map things out to really see it.
Yeah.
And like Manychat's a great tool. It allows you to see visually and drag everything around that. But I love your framework for coming up with that. Like, that if someone opted in or they got on your list, they have some kind of intent, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just, what level of intent are they at? And you leave no stone unturned. It's like, if you do this, they go into this bucket. If they do this, they go into this bucket. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, they start or they stop way too many layers too early, right? It's like, I sent out a 3-message sequence and they didn't buy, so therefore they're never going to buy.
This is the reason why 80%, 90% of people going into entrepreneurship fail. Because they don't realize and they don't understand that every single interaction that they have is a piece of data that can be cultivated. And it's like planting a seed. You gotta water it until it blossoms into a tree. And that's what it boils down to. And it's aggressive patience, right? So you have to be on them, right? With watering it, but you have to be patient for them to blossom. Like when I first started, going back to my story bit in dropshipping, I finally went into products that would solve a problem, or products that were people would really want to buy, or like viral products. And I sold the blackhead mask. For those of you guys who don't know what the blackhead mask is, it's like a charcoal mask that you put on your face and it pulls out, and then it pulls out your blackheads. And it's a phenomenal product that went viral. And there's a big story to that, but I ended up having like 80,000 people on my email list for that store, and I never did anything with those people.
Yeah, just like, can you imagine how much stuff you could have cross-sold or got recurring?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
It's so I was like I'm even to this day I think of that and I'm like, wow, if only I took more time to focus and cultivate the customer base that I actually had. And like I made a lot of money off of that campaign and those things that I ran. But I would say like the return would be 100x or 10x or whatever you want to say. But like, yeah, there was a lot left on the table. But I was just fortunate to have got that winning product. But let's say someone runs a campaign, and I see this all the time. They have these pieces of data. Let's say they have 100 people that come to your store. Okay, well, what are you doing with those 100 people, right? You're just gonna let them go, like they come in, they leave, or are you gonna like try to cultivate it? So yeah, I would say hands down that's the biggest thing. And you would say the same thing too, right? With the people that you talk to, clients, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I think Amazon sellers, this is one of the biggest things they struggle with, is they all hear they need to be building external audiences. They all know this, but they don't. It can be very complicated. Like you just said, like what you just explained is a very complex network to set up, and it requires quite a bit of really critical thinking and mapping out on a whiteboard and planning and thinking of all different scenarios to get it all set up. So what do you think? What do you think if you could just break it down into like a really distilled process for like how would I map this all out for my products if I'm an Amazon seller?
Yeah, and I would say first too, like I'm fortunate to have experience and to like dabble in a lot of different things. Like it's a big strength and it's also a big weakness. But some of you entrepreneurs are super heavy on like the creative side. And you have to be super self-aware that maybe the analytics and the data side is just really, really not your thing, right? And that's what is going to make it even harder for you to break down a process of doing things. But what that means is you need to find someone, or you need someone to help, or you need like Danny to help you really work on those sort of things. To succeed in that, right? Because like you could be super creative, or you could be super data driven and analytic, and then you're like, oh my goodness, why are things not working? Well, maybe it looks terrible, right? Maybe the creative side, or maybe the information in the funnel is not good. But going to your point is like, your question was, how can Amazon sellers use this to their advantage? Is that what you're...
Basically, like how, if I was an Amazon seller and I had nothing set up for Manychat whatsoever, like what kind of, like step one, how am I going to map this out? Step two, need to like set up some landing pages or something like that. Like what would you say is a good, like really overview of the steps needed to map that out?
Step one, I would say learn the basics of it. Learn and look at other people's funnels. That's number one. If you don't pass that, you need to find someone else that can do that for you. And then step two is map out or come up or brainstorm with a creative way on how you can put people into a funnel. And I would say make it a priority to put every single person in a funnel. So if you're doing influencer marketing, tie it in with a Manychat, tie it in with some sort of list that you can start building to cultivate that, right? Because then at least you have fish in a bucket. At least the fish didn't drop out and go back into the sea, right? So that's super important. And then from there, so like content, so learn, and then next thing is strategize content, and then third is like 100% execution. You got to start filling that funnel. But if I were to go, I'm just trying to think here, like for Amazon sellers specifically, because you're looking also for would you say I don't know Amazon that much because it's not my field, but I really want to get into more Amazon, so I'm going to be following this podcast heavy. But would you say a lot of people look for traffic also outside of Amazon or mainly inside Amazon?
I mean, so Amazon sellers, a lot of them who have the biggest advantage today, and people are wondering how they're able to stay on page one, is they're using a lot of these tactics that we've been talking about. They have good influencer marketing campaigns built out. They have really good Manychat. They have email lists that are built, and they're using them to consistently drip traffic over to Amazon, and not just any old traffic. These are people who are very pre-qualified. They're not just someone who's scrolling Amazon, they came across your product, they're like, oh hey, yeah, should I buy this one? Sure. No, they've been getting your emails and your value, and they know your brand, and so when they get to Amazon, they're gonna purchase.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And 100% because they have trust already in Amazon. For us, it's hard because it's harder for us, and our conversion rates are lower, I would say, because we have to get them to trust our brand and then buy from our store. But with Amazon, everybody knows Amazon. Everybody has probably bought something from Amazon. So you guys are ahead of the game when it comes to your traffic is a lot more warm to possibly purchasing. So I would say, make sure it's super, you got to work on the operations of how that funnel works. You got to put yourself in your customer's shoe and say, hey, if I go through this funnel, it's not going to turn me off because it's too complicated and it's just messed up and what's going on? Or if you put yourself in their shoes and you go through the funnel and they're just like, oh my goodness, they just sold me right away, right? You gotta really break it down and think of okay, what value am I going to provide to my customers first? What would it take to make me actually sell the product? And that's what it boils down to. Every product that we've ever been sold, we sold in our company, is either I was oh my goodness, I am going to buy this product. Or I was okay, I can 100% see myself in the customer's shoes buying the product because this and this and this is aligned. And I think that's what it boils down to. Whether you're getting traffic from inside, outside, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, any platform. So.
Totally. And I think a really big piece of that, I'm actually going to be doing a podcast about this soon, is on messaging. Really crafting your messaging. And the goal of that is to be able to write ads, be able to write email sequences and stuff like that in a way that, like Daniel said, when a customer sees it, they're like, oh my goodness, this is exactly what I was looking for. It's almost like it was made for me. And that's the power of really crafting your brand messaging, speaking to a very specific person, right? And so Daniel, one last question I have about the messenger bots is, you mentioned in a sequence you like to give them value first, sending some kind of valuable thing without ever asking for the sale. What are some examples of that? Are they just messages and little cool snippets, or are you sending them to a full blog post or video that you have, or what are you doing?
Best thing to do is keep them inside the funnel. Keep them retention is a big thing, right? You want to keep them inside the platform that you are on. So for instance with it goes back to email marketing too, right? If you have an external blog, then it's another action that they have to take, and they may drop off depending on how fast their internet, whatever. So try to keep your content inside. I would say, model after what people are doing that works. And most of the people that are making a lot of money is they have their funnels set up with value, right? What value? Maybe that's a blog post, or maybe that's a testimonial, or maybe that's a video. All these things you can put inside Manychat. It's very versatile. You can do a lot of different things. But I would say value about the product first, maybe informing a little bit more information about the product, and then you can go in with the ask, not the super hard sell. So.
Awesome. And based on what Daniel's talking about Manychat, I'm going to be testing out a few of these things on probably you guys who are listening to this, because we send out every episode to the Manychat list. So if you're listening to this right now, then there's a good chance that you went through one of these funnels.
100%. That's awesome. It's super cool. And I said this all the time. It's just with our marketing department, I just said, listen, before, now we have a relationship, but before this, to me, you were a piece of data that I took. Like it just, I mean, like when I say it that way, it sounds like I have no like I'm just like super cold when it comes down to it. But like it comes down to numbers, right? But it's just like, listen, I cultivated you in order to come in. Like I had to sell you on this sort of thing. Like you're not listening to this unless you like really mesh with Danny and what he's doing, right? So it like, as long as you're honest and like completely honest about what you're doing, and like, yeah, I think it's pretty cool. But yeah, 100%, get me on that messenger list. I want to be on that.
Yeah.
Because then I can get notified. Like a lot of you guys use, like everybody uses Messenger, right? And like if I get sent an email saying, hey, Danny says, hey Dan, how's it going? We just had a new podcast, but that's on my email. I might not see it, but if it's directly to my personal Facebook, I'll be like, hell yeah. And then if there's a button there that says like listen to it now or save for later, and I click, I can't listen to it now, but save for later, and then I click a button, and then there's another thing that says, do you want to listen to this 3 hours and 5 hours, or remind me, and then then I can get an automatic reminder, right? So it's just so many things you can do, but I definitely want to be on that messenger list. It's gonna be lit.
Heck yeah, man.
It's gonna be lit.
Well, Daniel, this has been an awesome interview. Man, so much value packed into
here.
Thank you
so much. Yeah, I feel like we could talk about this forever. And hey, this is inspiring to me. I want to get a podcast. I'm gonna have to definitely interview you because Amazon is super hot right now and it's not going anywhere. And I think it's here to stay.
Oh man, well I don't think they've released their Q4 numbers yet, but it's like almost guaranteed to be somewhere around 220 billion for 2018, which is nuts.
How crazy was that? Jeff, I was seeing all the stuff that he got a divorce and then now he's dating some. Like, do you follow that like the Amazon?
I try to stay away from the Amazon tabloid stuff. Actually, I'm on a pretty hardcore not very much news diet. I don't really.
Yeah, I don't do news either. But when everybody's talking about it, then it's just like those are the things. But like I'm anti-news.
The most expensive divorce in the world, though. Yeah.
Yeah. Piece of advice from our Canadians here: news is also a business, and their business is to keep you attentive and feed you whatever makes them money. So most of the time, it's fake.
Yeah, well, and not only that, it's someone pointed out to me a couple of years ago, and I'm so glad they did, that news is about 90% or so negative. Yeah, and I challenge you right now, go to CNN, go to CBC, whatever you listen to for news, and count yourself. Count 20, and then I guarantee there's only going to be 2 or so stories in there.
It's always like who died, or like this person got shot, or like this. Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah.
But positivity is the key. You gotta stay positive.
Stay positive, man. Well, yeah, and so Daniel, if people want to learn more about you or see what you do, where can they reach out to you?
Yeah, you can. I'm trying to go really ham on the socials, so you can find me anywhere at Daniel Phillip on Instagram. It's .DanielPhillip, but if you just search Daniel Phillip, it should show up. But yeah, I would love to chat. Send me a DM. I have people monitoring my Instagram, but send me a DM and just say, hey, I want to talk to Dan, and we'll chat. So yeah, stay tuned.
Awesome, and yeah, go ahead and get in both of our Manychat funnels, guys.
Yeah,
enjoy more of our content. We're gonna send so much more.
100%.
Awesome, man. So if you guys want the show notes for this episode, go check out kenjiroi.com/blog, and you'll see everything right there. And until next time, guys, see you later.
Peace.